Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV, where we believe that everyone has the potential to have the mind of a champion. And hang tight because in this episode, you'll discover what it takes to have the mind of a champion. And you're going to want to watch this show because it's going to be freaking awesome. So wake up with us and remember, it's time to wake your inner giant. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and author and co-creator of the 12 Journeys Coaching and co-host of this show, Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm here with Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls and The Art of Accomplishment as well. He wrote a book, an amazing sales training book. It's awesome, and you can use it in any part of your life. It's just awesome. That's my word of the day. I don't know why.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, you could double it up and have double awesome.
I feel like I'm on the Lego movie all of a sudden. Oh, before we begin, we've got our first, on the first, we've got the Sum Gigante 9. Is that what number we're up to now?
This is our 9th group through the program. Yeah,
that's my number in baseball. That's a great number.
Wow.
And then we've got doTERRA. We're reading with them on the 22nd of February, I believe.
Yeah, teaching the executive team, the U.S. based team.
Ooh, that'll be fun. What else do we have, Nick? That's out there.
Well, we're still pursuing the movie. We'd like to get a hold of Brendan Fraser. So if you know somebody that can put us in touch with him, let's do that. We'll get him a copy of the book and our mission here so that he can see that.
Yes, Nick is on furlough from jail. We just got back. We just got back from going to jail, which was pretty awesome.
This ankle bracelet is really uncomfortable.
Right? He's coming to you live in jail. No, we went out to Vernal, Utah, and served the Giants out there. And part of it was we got to go teach the inmates and talk to them. And
can we talk about that for a second? Then
yeah, do it. Let's do it. Hang there.
I mean, we spent 2 days there. Broke a library record. They had the max was 10 people that showed up to a reading. We had 77. So we blew their record out of the water, which is awesome. It's a small town.
We've contacted, the World Records Guinness Book. And
yeah, we got to get that in there. Yeah. I think out of the 77 inhabitants of Vernal, we got all of them. So
yeah, it's 100% attendance.
Shooting 100%. That was cool. There was a guy, whatchamacallit. There's a candy bar named after him, whatchamacallit. He takes people on these adventures, this Watch'em adventure, which is you don't know what you're going to get. So what he arranged was to have us arrested while we were in the parking lot of the jail when we were going to teach inmates. And so they arrested us, processed us, and put us into the system just like they would have gone through. And so kind of gave me a sense of that going into that loss of freedom, what that might be like. And so it's really powerful to teach from that space. So I think that it turned out really successfully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome. The tribe, we posted the tribe. If you're not a member of the tribe of Giants, go to Facebook and join that group. It's free. There's only a couple of requirements, and that's to be a giant and not be a jerk. We label it a little different as the number one rule. So go in there and check it out. But they were in there supporting us and loving us and worried about us because some of them thought it was real. Well, we really didn't get arrested, but it was a great time and saw a lot of impact to those people's lives, which is what it's all about. So, and then you can also go to YouTube. So subscribe on YouTube. Hit the alert button so you'll know when we're doing these live and you can comment and participate as well. And and if you if you want to see what we're doing in the future, those are the places that you would go, or giantsandsmalls.com as well.
Perfect. Let's
introduce our guests.
Yeah, we've got a great guest. We got Jeff Davis all the way from across the world on this one. Yeah. So he's a multi-talented individual who's made a name for himself as an award-winning author of 3 books. He's a blogger, a professional speaker, a mental health advocate, and a consultant. He has a master's degree from Johns Hopkins Carey Business School and is known for his expertise in mental health and authentic leadership. He's a sought-after speaker who's delivered keynote speeches internationally and has been featured in top podcasts and as a TEDx speaker and Forbes contributor. So he has a nickname that I love. What is it? Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Is that how it goes? The nickname of Muhammad Ali of mental health. So he's known for his openness and depth in his speeches and interviews with influential figures such as billionaires, senators, CEOs, and best-selling authors. He currently resides in Rotterdam, Netherlands, and frequently consults with schools, nonprofits, organizations, associations, conferences, and businesses. And we're lucky enough to have him here today with us. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Nick and Ryan, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys today.
We're going to dive into your journey. So today it'll be a mixture of journey and philosophy. Before the show, we were talking about some items that I'd like to bring up as we move forward, of maybe working full time while you're building your dream. But before we get there, can we kind of go back to your awakening moment of what was it in your life that had you start going down this path?
Yes. So let's go back in time 16 years ago to when I was 17 years old. And I'll give you 3 root causes here, make a long story short, but also touch on the key points of it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 3 root causes quickly here. First off, I had an extreme and severe amount of bullying that I experienced. I was the quintessential late bloomer. Right now I'm 6 feet tall, but I didn't have my growth spurt until my junior year of high school. So I often got bullied for my height, and also people made fun of the way I spoke. Sometimes I got beaten up. It was pretty bad. Another root cause was this very hyper competitive, dysfunctional all boys high school that I went to. And the teachers and the guidance counselors there, they did not really guide us well. And it was a very dysfunctional environment. And then the third root cause is I was getting severely abused. Combine all of that, I'm in my senior year of high school, which is supposedly, according to society and the movies and everyone, the best year of your life. It turns out to be the worst year of my life. And I had a year-long clinical depression. And so now we're in the spring of my senior year. And I thought, I need to get out of this pain. I'm going to end my life. I called the person I thought was my best friend. And he says to me, Jeff, no one cares.
Oof.
So there was some truth there, and I know he meant it as a form of tough love, but it was brutal to hear that. No social support. I didn't have the self-esteem and self-confidence. So I'm in this very, very, very dark moment, the dark night of my soul. I pick up the rope. I nearly ended my life. Very nearly hung myself.
Well, we're going to dive right in. Here we go. Right. Yeah. The idea of what's going on in your inner world and how that affects your outer world and what you perceive, that bullying, that abuse can really impact your identity and who you think you are. And people sometimes, and probably not any fault of their own, get very dismissive about what's going on in somebody else's world, as though just get over it, Jeff, move on. Nobody cares. Right. Yep. It's a very stoic way to live. We take a different approach here. I get that can have some power depending on the situation, but for a lot of people, it's very impactful in a negative way, and it causes a downward spiral. Lisa Feldman Barrett in her work talks about depression being the measurement of our own ideals, that we don't live up to our own ideals or feel like we're not, right? And then you add anxiety of you feel like you're not doing that with other people. So here you are sharing with somebody that you thought might show some empathy, maybe some compassion, says, get over it, dude. How did that impact you?
Yes. Thank you, Nick. You hit the nail on the head there. And I loved how you hit the nuance there, and that in some situations, yes, tough love can work. And in that situation, it was not the right approach. So yeah, it made me feel like truly no one was really there for me. And I know the science, the research also shows that a lack of social support is one of the causes of people making tragic choices.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I had a higher power that came to me. It was an intuitive feeling, and it said, Jeff, put down the rope. I went back up into my room, and this was my awakening moment. I went into this really powerful meditation. And in this meditation, I went into this feeling of energy and love. It wasn't outer body. I was still in my body.
Yeah.
But I remember connecting with a feeling of, oh, my self-worth is not dependent on the outer world. And that's what I realized in the meditation. And that's my message for the world.
Yeah. We like to hit on grief. Okay. So the distinction between grief and depression, because you said you had a year-long depression, and grief is a sadness about what's going on in your world. It could be around a loss of a loved one. It could be around a loss of an ideal. You had a dream that you thought might be there. It could be depression moves you into the broader sense, right? Grief will be more of a specific thing. But when you get into depression, if we can talk about this a little bit, it's like there's no hope anywhere, right? There's no point to any of this. Whereas grief is, I'm feeling really sad about this specific thing, right?
Yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit? Like that idea of depression, before we move into your acceptance of it and growing, what would you share with somebody that's maybe going through that's listening to this, about depression versus grief? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And if we need to talk it through, we'll do that. But what were you experiencing? The depression? Did it start with some grief? I mean, what you talk about, the abuse and the bullying, did that start the grief? Did that start the depression?
Yes. What I would say, one of the things that started the depression, like you said, there are a lot of factors, is feeling small and having other people making me feel small. And whether this was people at school, whether it was the mean teacher, whether it was that rude guidance counselor, whether it was a relative, I had everyone in my world giving me this feeling, I'm worthless, I'm small. And it was all these things that kept adding up. And like you said, depression can be a very overarching feeling of hopelessness and worthlessness. And that's what I was experiencing. So for me, yes, there was a lot of trauma. At the same time, I wouldn't say it was a specific grief as much as it was a feeling of everyone around me. I mean, everyone. And I'm not exaggerating here. I'm not using that word like, I mean, everyone basically saying, Jeff, you're a worthless piece of crap, instead of supporting me and helping me and carrying me, all the things that I teach others in my speeches.
Yeah. You hear that enough, you start thinking, that's me.
Yeah.
You start thinking, this is who I am. When I wrote in the book at the beginning, when he's sharing with his friends, the ideas of becoming a giant, sharing this idea of maybe I could do that. And they start belittling. Well, then it puts them into a slump of depression, right? A slump of identity. And man, it's really important to notice that doesn't happen just in specific people. That could happen to a lot of us. I go through phases like that. I went through a decade of anxiety, which, similar to depression, is, it stops any forward momentum.
Yes.
Right.
I've also struggled with anxiety. And by the way, one of our wonderful listeners here, Hugh, made a beautiful comment where he said, depression is happening when he feels like he's in a life that he didn't want to be in, doing things he didn't want to do. And I thought that really hit the nail on the head, because I also had a people-pleasing pattern. And I also was living my life according to other people's expectations. They didn't care about my well-being. They cared about their own agenda. So I really resonated with Hugh there, because we get depressed when we start living other people's lives and agendas.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to keep playing with this, because I see depression and anxiety as almost like two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
Right. And so the depression of not living up to your own ideals and the anxiety of not living up to the ideals of others. Right. But they both create a similar outcome in the body. And man, many of us have done that, where we trade off what we want for others. We hustle for our worthiness, like Brene Brown says. And we're out there just doing all these things like people pleasing and perfectionism and control and all these unhealthy behaviors that kind of affect us, that we're trying to do for somebody that really, like your friend says, get over it. Why are you doing this? Like, they don't see the value in that effort anyway, but we continue to do it. Does that bring anything up for you?
Yes, it definitely does. When we have our lives so caught up in those agendas, it's very, very easy to lose ourselves. I know also you mentioned the anxiety. So when you compound the depression with the anxiety, with the voices around us that don't necessarily have our best interests at heart, we can spiral really fast. And anxiety, I'm going to be open and vulnerable. It's something I've struggled with my whole life. and I still do. I manage it much better now, and I have much better copings, and I have a much better support network now than I ever did when I was younger. But it's still hard. I still get anxiety a lot, and I just wanted to be vulnerable about that.
I love that. Thank you for that, because that is human, right? So a lot of us are going to go through that. There are some people that can't relate to that, Jeff. I've met them. They can't relate to that. They've never had that. They had great upbringings. They never had really big challenges, and they learned healthy coping tools so that it didn't become an issue. But for many of us, anxiety might be our companion for our whole life. And so learning to manage it is powerful. These first 6 journeys that we talk about in the Tribe of Giants and the Giants and the Smalls are really heavy stuff. You and I were talking about toxic positivity, right? We call it frosting dog poop. We learned that from Steve Hardison. It's like, that's what people do, is they put this positive spin on crap that's going on in here, you know, and it doesn't take care of that issue. And what we like to do is really slow down with what's going on in you that's keeping you from reaching your potential. And it could be really heavy. We've had people tell us to F off. We've had people tell us this is the worst program I've ever been through because it's so heavy. I'm used to rah. Like, I don't want to do this, right?
It's not what they're expecting. They're expecting to be like pumped up and it's a happy course. And then they go through the first 6 journeys and like, because they have to see it. They have to face it and feel it and then learn what to do when it comes up, because anxiety doesn't go away. I mean, it can dissipate in that sense, but it'll continue to come up and over and over and over again. You just know what to do with it when it comes up. And then I'm imagining, Jeff, like at this point in your life, you move through it much quicker when it does come up, because now you have the tools and the ability to move through that. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
So there's hope. There's hope for everybody at home, that they're like, well, no, I don't want it forever, right? Don't worry, it'll be quick when you learn what to do.
Like you guys said, it will always be there for some, probably for me and for many others. You can know the resources to move through it much easier. Let me just say this really quickly. You guys are awesome. I really mean this. I'm really feeling the vibe and wavelength right here, being on the same wavelength. This is exactly what I share with others, going to the core, the heart of the mud, of the messiness, and that will get you to a better place, and you need to face it. I'm really vibing with what you both just said. So keep up the incredible work.
We just made that up right now. That's awesome.
Well, you're in our club, because Nick was diagnosed with general anxiety, and me as well. I was, like given all kinds of medicines as a kid. Well, and as an adult.
And the impact of upbringing, the impact of social connections, the impact of culture. When we come into this world, we have our DNA and our genetics. And, if you look at Bruce Lipton's work on the biology of belief, we come pre-programmed a bit. But then we step into our culture and our society, and we learn our language and how to live and what to believe and all this stuff. And we gain our proto values. And then from there, we establish our own. But those are impactful. They might be with us for the rest of our life, those value systems. And then to transform those, that's the real journey, is transforming it into your unique identity and your unique gift to this world. We're not meant to be average here. I don't think that we were put here to do that, just live a basic life. I don't think that, but we're not required to do anything more than that either, But, those that want to jump on that journey, that have that desire to do so, you really have to face all this stuff, because until you do, it's going to get in your way. Somebody said you're going to call it fate. I think it was Carl Jung. He says you're going to look at that and not look at it. Let me say it that way, and call it fate. Right. And so this is where, like you talked about, that moment where you've got the rope in your hand. You got the rope in your hand. I mean, that's an impactful image right there, that you set it down. And this is, man, that imagery right there, you set it down, you go up and you start meditating. Some people might pray. Some people might just be aware, but you set it down, you start meditating, and you start acknowledging, in a way, what is. And in that acknowledgement of what is, you're empowered to see what's possible for you. Is that accurate, or is there a better way to say that?
That is accurate. That's a beautiful way to put it. Have you guys heard of the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the closest I've seen it described to how I experience it. And you also just described it incredibly well, where Eckhart had his own awakening, where you are pulling your worth away from all of the anxiety in your mind as well as the external world. And I went into this energy field. It was indescribable. And I realized, whoa, all this programming I was taught was wrong. So when you use the word empowered, that is an excellent word, because I empowered myself in that moment through deep, deep soul meditation to see, okay, wait a second. What the outer world is saying is not true. I'm worthy, and my self-worth is infinite, despite all this programming and all this nonsense I was experiencing at my high school and et cetera.
Wow. Yeah.
And anybody, real quick, man, there's stuff coming up for me. Like, this is great. And obviously, all three of us would rather that you didn't have to experience these things. I'm so grateful to Jeff that you did, because now look where you're at and the things, the messages that you're able to give. If you wouldn't have put the rope down, it could have ended much different. And if you ever have the opportunity to put somebody on your shoulder and lift them up, do that. That's what we're doing here. When somebody makes that phone call to you, slow down, love that person. Because, man, I mean, imagine if we didn't have the gift of Jeff Davis right now.
I appreciate you, Ryan. I appreciate you very much. You nailed it. You completely nailed it. Care, genuine care. Like you said, you get that call. Let's have some empathy. And we live in at times a dark world, but the way that we can deal with that dark world is shining our light. So like you said, caring for other people and being a genuine person and helping others lift them up when they're down, instead of what I experienced, people kicking me when I was down, literally and figuratively.
So I want to go back to that comment there by Carey. Ryan, can you pull that up? And this is a learning opportunity. This is all I want to share in this is this statement is accurate. Depression and anxiety can't fit in your head when joy. Can you pull that back up?
Sorry, I accidentally clicked it twice. I was like,
you're good. When they're feeling of joy is an inspiration. But I'll tell you, when you're in that space, that's not present. I don't feel joy. Right. So to the idea, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the idea of, and Carey, this isn't what I'm saying here, the idea of toxic positivity. Well, just think joyful thoughts, just think inspiration. And when you're in that space, you don't see anything but that, right? When you're in that negative space, it's not that you need to flip it. Here's what we do instead that's a little different. We don't try and flip it from one thing to another. Now, that might occur naturally because of your acknowledgement about what's going on. What we want to do here in our world and the way we train this is to acknowledge it, to create some acceptance and some room for it to be exactly as it is, that I feel that negativity. Jeff, if somebody said, hey, just think more positively, Jeff, you call them up and he says, hey, we don't care, right? Think more positively, get over it. You just spin your thoughts. That right there would spin you into a negative depression even more.
Yes.
And so the opportunity here is not to do that, but to acknowledge what's going on for Jeff and his world. To acknowledge, yeah, this sucks, man. That's not fun. I'm sorry you're experiencing that. That isn't ideal. I can relate to what you're saying in my own way. That acknowledgement is probably the most powerful thing that we have. To not deny our reality as it is, but to just notice and give knowledge to the fact that that's the way your world is right now, and that's how you're perceiving it. Is that accurate, Jeff?
Nick, I'm speechless. That is 100% completely accurate. And when I worked with a psychotherapist to work through a lot of the trauma and abuse I experienced, he gave that tip. So it's really refreshing to talk to both of you because you guys really get it like at a deep level. where you recognize and acknowledge and validate those incredibly painful, difficult experiences. Instead of pushing them down and away, you acknowledge them. Beautifully said. I love it. I'm loving this conversation right now.
Yeah, we know from our journeys the awareness of it. When you step out of judgment and justification for what is, and you acknowledge, you go into the journey of acceptance. That acknowledgement alone is just giving recognition to the idea that it's present. And here's what we've learned from Steve Chandler and others is that there is a natural expression of what's good in your life when you acknowledge what's not good in your life. Like you said, you were empowered the moment you could sit in meditation and really look at things for what they were. You started to notice instantly some of the good things that were in your life. Is that true?
Yes. It's a bit of a catch-22, perhaps,
Okay.
if that's the right term. It's
Sure.
like acknowledging the bad stuff helps you get to a good place. And when you force positivity on the bad stuff, instead of acknowledging it, it will spiral you worse. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like if you force positivity on the negative, it can spiral you downward.
Yes.
Interesting, right? Somebody, I think it might have been Eckhart Tolle that said, Tolle, is that how you say it? That acknowledgement is the first step in transformation. Acceptance is the first step in transformation. And that's what we mean by acceptance, is just an acknowledgement of it. You don't have to love it. You don't have to like say, oh, this is awesome, I want to be like this forever. It's just giving voice to the thing that's happening or that has happened.
Yes. And that's a huge part of our healing process. That's the being aware of that, having the awareness to recognize and acknowledge is the beginning of our healing process.
Yeah. Perfect. Let me ask you this. What do you use for tools to empower yourself? So when you have these really intense emotions, let's say you get into anxiety, what are some tools that you use to get back into your power, to soften those emotions, maybe not to make them go away, but to soften them enough that you can get re-engaged with your life?
Yeah. So we talked a bit about meditation on this call. So I'll say that again, meditation, deep breathing. So just slowing down and breathing in and out. And I will consciously monitor my breath, and that helps to modulate some of that anxiety and some of those thoughts that are all over the place. Also, I mentioned earlier on the call, the social support. I did not have that when I was younger, and that's somewhere that I've really improved, and I have a much better network. So when I'm really feeling like I'm spiraling in my mind and meditation isn't working and the bathtub isn't working, I'll call someone, I'll call a friend, I'll call a colleague. And I find that is very, very helpful. And I'll share this, talking to a psychologist is important, and it's equally important to have a social support network of friends and colleagues that you can rely on when you're in a time of need.
Yeah, I think as trainers and coaches too, to recognize where we maybe are not equipped to handle what's in front of us, and to gently nudge and inspire people to pursue that kind of help. Some people don't want to talk to a therapist. I know my limitations. I know that there's a point where you really do need to talk to a therapist and not me, right? And so as trainers and facilitators and coaches, to recognize, look, what are your limitations and when is it best to hand it off to somebody that is equipped with that particular thing? Because you get into some of these heavier mental illnesses and it's like, I'm not prepared for that. And I've told people that, look, this isn't what I do, and I can't serve you in this space. I love you, but I really recommend that you talk to a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, right? There's nothing to do with the person. It's just trying to help them in the best way that they can be helped or served, right? Can you speak to that a little more?
Yes. I love the professionalism there as well, because we as coaches serve others, and like you, I will act as a liaison, so to speak, between the person and the therapist. So I can help and serve them, and I can share my experiences. I also tell the person, hey, what you're going through is unique, and what you're going through is your own situation and your own circumstance, and you need to do what works for you. So there is a very professional boundary here where we will encourage them to seek professional help. And that is so important. I have done psychotherapy, and I know it can feel
Yeah.
scary in the beginning, but it is completely life-changing. I am a changed man. I'm much more joyful. I'm much more peaceful. Even my friend said, Jeff, I noticed something different about you. And it's because I went through the psychotherapy.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there are things where if it's so persistent that you can't do this level of coaching where you can easily go out and implement. You can't do that because you're so overwhelmed by your emotions and your thinking. That's where therapy is really powerful, because they have tools to help you kind of break through that. And then as you break through that, you add things like what we're doing right to it, so it keeps it going. But to really break through, sometimes you really need that deeper dive with the right tools. And that's where therapists and psychologists can really help out. And it's not a negative thing. I think it's very useful.
Yes.
So all of this, like what we just talked about, we spent 30 minutes here on the internal stuff. We could spend weeks and months on this stuff, right? We just touched on the surface of your world. And so really diving into that is vital, because until you do that, right, you're frosting dog crap. You keep looking for the next program and you do it. And for 7 days, you feel good. And then you're right back to where you started because you haven't dealt with what's going on in here. And that's where we really slow down with people is, let's see who you think you are. Let's see what's going on in here so that we can advance. And so I want to jump back to your story of when you started to break through and you saw the power in you in that meditation. What happened out here now in the growth side? How did you start to see uncertainty? How did you start to see the world? How did you start to vision the world? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So it was embarking on a lifelong personal development journey. And I, at that point, had the core foundational spark in my soul. And now it was building on that. And it was going to seminars and conferences and surrounding myself with better people, books, blogs, YouTube videos, whatever I needed to do. So that was a really big piece to embark on this personal development journey, and to then build on, at that point, zero self-esteem and zero self-confidence. And there are a lot of steps forward and also steps back. There are a lot of setbacks along the way. It can be incredibly challenging because you're reprogramming yourself, but that was really the core.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to hit you on some things here. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So we talk about the journey of uncertainty is not being able to see what's ahead of you. That all of this out here in the front is unwritten until you create it. And who's looking forward is as important as who's doing the doing. So who's doing the viewing is as important as who's doing the doing. So this goes back to those core journeys. So when you take care of that inner stuff and you start looking into the unknown, instead of fear about the unknown, now you might have excitement about the unknown. Margaret Drabble calls it that, or she says that when nothing is sure, everything is possible. And that's how we play with it, is you start looking at your future as possibility, right? Then you look at the abundance that's around you, and abundance isn't a financial thing. Abundance is all of the resources that you need are already around you. And so you start to see that. You start to transform them from the form they're in into the form that you have in mind, which goes into your vision. You start to see a brighter future. And when you have that hope for a brighter future, now you know you're the one that's going to create it, and you'll overcome any obstacle to get there. So you just hit on setbacks, right? You'll overcome all of that to get to the vision that you have in mind for yourself.
Yes. And to piggyback off of that, one thing that I just remembered as well is,
Yep.
I always like to view uncertainty as actually two sides of the same coin. You have uncertainty and possibility. And,
Okay.
and that's a core thing, where embracing the uncertainty and being able to, what you just said as well, to understand, oh, things are so uncertain, but hey, let's get excited. Things are also possible. So It was actually like, oh, okay, this was rock bottom for me. Oh, okay, this sucks. A lot of my life, let's just say all of my life sucked, but you know what? I'm going to get excited here. Let's build on this. And it's a long journey. It's an arduous journey, but it is worth it in the end. It is well worth it. There is possibility on the other side of that uncertainty.
Yeah, I love this. We were talking about this before the show. So we say that surrender and nurture, self-care and nurture, being nurture, are the double helix, or the DNA of creation. That when you can nurture yourself and your creation and surrender how it comes about, that's the DNA of creation. That's what makes it and takes it from a vision to a reality. And you and I were talking about, the possibility of creating your dreams while you're doing something else. Like I work still, Ryan works still. We have a full-time career and we do this. And we talked about how that has actually enhanced what we do. It's given power to that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So right now I work part-time as well, which supports me next to everything else I do as the writer, as speaker, and upon request, sometimes coaching others as well. I love this. I love that it can enhance what you're doing. And I say this completely respectfully. There are some entrepreneurs who will say, "Oh, don't have a job," and I respect their message, but it doesn't really resonate with me, because I found when I have that career and job supporting what I do, not only do I learn great skills, but it allows me to show up and to serve and to be myself more powerfully. I don't have to shove my products down people's throats. I've got a great financial foundation with that job, and then I can go out there and crush it and serve. And yes, if someone wants to buy something, great, but I don't have to force it on someone. There's no neediness and there's no attachment. And that actually allows us to serve more powerfully and more deeply.
Yeah,
that's why I said what I did in the jail, Nick.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sure. I mean, you can share the language too if you want, but
no, I was sitting in the jail, and I don't know why that came up, but I told them I didn't care if I swore, but I said I don't care. I don't give a shit if we sell a single book. Now, the book sales help to then be able to go do things like what we did this weekend, where we impact and change somebody's life. I was sitting there next to Jess, who just hopped on here from Vernal, and her world was impacted this weekend. I would do it all again, everything again for her. Jackie Sweat, who helped put the group together, and the whole experience. Guy whatchamacallit. I would do everything that we've done for the last 4 years, and it's not been easy at all. There's been easy moments and there's been joyful moments, but it's been a long road. But I love what you said, because having the job and the income that we have then allows us to show up more powerfully, because there's not a neediness to it all, and we can set that aside and just be and serve and love.
I've been through the phases where there is that neediness. So where this creation, the giants and the smalls and all of this, was all I had, right? And so I was depending on it for income and all this stuff. So I put that on other people, and they can feel that. They know that I'm just using them to get what I need out of this, right? So having that career for us has helped to take that away, where we can go do a trip like this, or go down to Phoenix like we did and train 16 people down there, 300 people in Vernal. Not a money-making thing, really. Like, we didn't come out with a lot from that, but man, the experiences and the changed hearts that came out of that were amazing. And it was made possible by us doing our other gig, right? Now, like you said, there are entrepreneurs out there that say, "Hey, just jump out and do this." I shut down. I shut the F down. Like I get in so much anxiety that it's like that I can't function properly, right? For me, it's worked really well to have this thing. And it sounds like you're in a similar boat, where it gives you that foundation, where it takes the neediness away. And I look at your bio and I'm like, holy crap, man. This guy's doing some amazing things, and he works and he serves and he does all these things. It's not an either or world, right? It's an and world. Does that resonate for you?
Very much so. Very much so. I've got a great rapport with the CEO at the place where I'm working part-time. He knows everything I'm doing and he loves it. So it can be combined. I will add in this as well. I want to add some more value here, that if you're in a job that doesn't resonate, find something else. There are many possibilities out there, and there are such things as toxic work environments. So as Ryan said, nothing is easy in this life. We do have to work hard, but it can become easier as we start to surround ourselves with better people, better environments. And like you said, it's an and world. We can be fully ourselves, serving the world, and have a career at the same time. And that secret sauce there is how I and people like you guys are able to show up so powerfully and to help other people.
Yeah, there's no hiding in our world. They're fully aware of what we do. It's beautiful. We created that, though. It was a creation, a co-creation between us and them. And if we weren't able to do that, we wouldn't be there. We'd be somewhere else. And I've been in jobs where there was that co-creation initially, but then that person wanted my full attention, but that wasn't the agreement. That didn't work for me. That person wanted me to put 100%, which I was 100% there. I was 100% over here, but he wanted all of that focus on his creation. And that wasn't what we agreed to do. That didn't work for me. So I moved on. And so that's the power of creation, is you can create your world. You can create your career. You can create this stuff along with your career in that world. It's not, you don't have to sacrifice one over the other just because you've got a dream you want to pursue. It's powerful.
Yeah.
I don't even know where we're going to go from here, because should we wrap it up? That was good. No, I want to stay there for a little bit, because it's, I want to talk about vision. Okay. I was playing with the idea. My daughter, her birthday's coming up, and she gave me a list. I want to play with this a little bit. Okay. Very clear websites to go to, which items she wants on those websites.
Here's the links, Dad.
What kind of cake she's going to have. I want you to hear the power of this, because
I love it.
I hear the power in this, right? She has probably 20 items on here that she wants. I'm not going to give her every one of them, but I'll tell you, I've read through every one of them. And if we're thinking about God, universe, or however this all works, right, that when you put in a request like this, right, it might not look exactly like what you had in mind, but the amount of excitement in creating this list, and the clarity that she had in creating this list, and the anticipation that comes, the bringing it forward before it's time, like she's already excited about what she's going to get, right? She knows it's coming. There's no question in her mind that some of this is coming to her, and she'll be excited about whatever comes, if it fits within somewhat those guidelines. Now, she's not going to ask me for these things, and I'll get her totally something else. Yeah, I would never do that as a dad. I want her to have what she's asking for, but her clarity helps me to know what to give her, right? So going back to the idea of vision, is how important is it, and how do you go about creating in your world when it hasn't been created yet? Does that make sense?
Yes. Love what your daughter did there. That is excellent. And like you said, the clarity allows you to know what she desires, what to give her. Yeah. I find, by the way, vision is crucial. As leaders, we must have a vision. I find what made all the difference in the world for all the things I've done with book writing and a lot of other projects is habits and processes. And this was also something I heard from a lot of the top-notch experts that I interviewed for various reasons. So we have a vision, and then we take it into a daily habit and process. And what I see a lot of people do is they have a vision, and that's fantastic. That's a great step. And then they don't take those daily actions every day. So I find it transformative and powerful, where I say, what habit, what daily action is going to serve me to get to that vision? And that made all the difference in the world. Break down that huge, huge task into small, tiny steps, and you can conquer the mountain that way.
Yeah, beautiful. Benoit Mandelbrot talks about simple steps repeated create the complexity of life. Yep. He discovered the fractal equation. And I think the overwhelm in our world comes with, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get this thing I've asked for, right? How am I going to do it? We look at the movie, I've never lost the vision of the movie. This little quarter here is a representation of that. When we were in Phoenix, these 7-8-year-old triplets of Abigail Elias came up and said, this is for your movie. Gave us this, and for the book, right? So I hold it as a commitment to create that, as a reminder that this is what I'm committed to. I have my vision board in front of me. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. But every time there's an opportunity to step, we step. We send letters to Pixar. My kids wrote a book, or a message in a book, and we sent it to Pixar. And Jim Morris, president of Pixar, responded back with a really nice letter saying no, right? But it's one possible pathway. If it was
related, I would have punched him.
Right. So when something like that happens, like you say, these small steps, we don't know which way is going to be the way that creates this vision. But the willingness to take that small step anyway, even if it's a no, even if it's not that's not the path, right? Opens up other possibilities. Now we're looking at, what about Brendan Fraser as a possibility? Could we talk to him? We don't know, but we're going to find out, right? So I think too often we get in our head of shutting it down before we even act on it. And you're hitting on the power of action, even micro action. Can you speak a little more about that?
Yes, and being so micro action, being clear on the vision and being flexible about the approach. So maybe you get through to Pixar. By the way, I consider that a win, that you got acknowledged by the president of Pixar. You got acknowledged by him. That's acknowledgement. That's already a win in my opinion.
Yeah.
Flexible about the approach. Maybe it ends up not being through Pixar. Maybe it's through an independent producer. Maybe it's through some other kind of venue. Maybe there's other collaborations that emerge. So that's the flexibility in the approach. You're clear on the vision, the mission, and the message, but you're flexible about those micro actions. And that's where you need to trust your intuition. I'm like, okay, I'm going to run forward with my blog. Great. That's a top priority. And while I do the blog, what else can I do to complement that? And those micro actions, those little tweaks, are where you're trusting your intuition, you're learning from the top experts in the field, and you're collaborating with the best people.
Okay. And even trusting the not doing.
Yes.
Right. Because there's a level of that. Yep. There are times where I don't do anything and I've got to trust that that's okay too. And that can be really hard, because I was raised, you got to be constantly hustling. You got to constantly be putting effort into this. But sometimes in that pullback, it's exactly what you needed to do. The challenge is people like shut down and they don't do anything. Right?
I'm going to share this quickly, and this is completely to add value to the incredible listeners who are here today.
Yeah.
I built my professional speaking career over 9 years. It wasn't doing, I had a lift off, and then it crashed down, and then it got completely in the mud, and then there was Corona, and I detached. I stopped wanting. I wasn't resentful. I said, you know what? I've planted some beautiful seeds over 9 years. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to focus on my career. I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to keep being on podcasts and serving others. And guys, I couldn't make this up if I tried. Last year, I get a request out of nowhere, after I detached, after I let it go, to be the headline keynote speaker, speaking to police officers and lawyers at multiple international conferences around the world. By far the biggest opportunity I ever got. Now, I planted the seeds, and then I detached. I got out of that wanting. It wasn't I want anymore. I let go of that, and I said, I'm at peace in myself. If it's not meant to be, that's okay. I'm still adding value to the world, and I get a request. I couldn't have made that story up even if I tried.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is amazing. I wrote a poem and a book years ago called Sowing Seeds, and it's on Amazon. You can read it there. And it's this idea that you'll never plant a seed that doesn't produce the fruit that you planted. Like you don't plant a seed and get a watermelon tree, right?
Yep.
It doesn't happen that way. You don't plant peas and get tomatoes. And so, but trusting also that the seed knows what it's doing. But nothing's going to happen until you plant that seed.
Yes.
Right? And the letting go is just letting go is trusting. Letting go is surrender, rendering over to the process, rendering over to what needs to happen for that to be a reality. We tried, with the Tribe of Giants, we tried to control how it grew, and it shrunk, right? Yeah. They went the opposite direction. So really just allowing it that space to do what it needs to do and listening to it, because your creation will often tell you what it needs. That intuition you talk about, it'll just say, look, this is what we need. And if you're not listening to it, you're going to give it what you think it needs, and it doesn't need that.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Planting the seeds, taking action, and then detaching. And that's the part of one aspect of the law of attraction I don't agree with. There are some experts out there who will say, do nothing. And that I don't agree with. Of course, everyone has their own message, but where we're on the same page here today is plant those seeds, take the action, and then detach. Get out of a neediness, get out of a wanting, and trust, like you said, trust the process. And that magic mix will get you to the mountaintop.
That is powerful. Let me ask you this. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you doing any of this? Why do you get out of bed in the morning?
The core of it, the core, this is the highest mission, is because I care, because I'm helping others, and because I wouldn't wish what I experience on my worst enemy. And I would like to give other people the insights, the ideas, whatever I can share that I learned the hard way that can help them navigate their journey better. And I truly mean that. I don't care who wants to call me cheesy. I don't care what anyone wants to say about that. I truly care from the bottom of my heart. That's why I'm on amazing calls like these. That's why I write books, and that's why I get out there and speak. And yes, money will follow that mission, and the core of it is helping others.
Yeah, making a difference.
Yep.
Man, that I look back at this journey just as a reflection here. 2009, the book was written. It sat for 6 years while I went back to school, like you were saying, to the detachment.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything with it. And then going through the divorce, I picked it back up. And part of it was really self-centered, that central focus was all right here. Like, I want to do this because it might impact my life. But as we've grown this, that has shifted for me. I've had some transformation around that. For me, is the more I do that, the less this thing grows. The more I can get out there and do what we did the last 2 weeks and really focus on the person across from us, this thing just takes off. That's what it needs. That's like the sunlight to this creation is out there. You're, like you just said, you don't want anybody to go through what you went through. You wouldn't wish that on your worst enemy. And you want to inspire hope and bring them, what you've had in your life. And that's where the true growth happens. That's powerful.
That's
Ryan,
exactly it. That's exactly it. And I love your mission. I love what you guys are doing with the giants and the smalls, and all of your trainings and all of your discussions that you have to empower others, to help others, to help them realize their potential, to help them transform. I really, really resonate. And I'm grateful to both of you, Nick and Ryan, for what you do in the world. The world needs more people like you. And you guys are shining your light and helping others in the right way. And I really, really admire and appreciate that.
Thank you. We're probably flooding people with information. We're like an ice bucket challenge of like,
me too.
Here's some giant stuff, right?
Yeah.
Ryan, what thoughts are you having as you hear this?
I put this up because it's the idea of really getting comfortable with who you really are, and then being that. And if there's things in your life that you don't want, then you figure out what you do, and then you work on those. And you'll find that as I'm Jeff, I'm sure as you've stepped into, truly what you want, desire for others, and you've become something different too, as you hit different levels. I'm going to call them levels, as we spiral up in our growth. That doesn't make any of us better than any of you at all. And it just makes us want to share more so that you can see and feel what we see and feel. And I have giants in my world, like Jeff, like Nick, like Steve Hardison, like Lori Parks, like Hugh Jacobson, that constantly pick me up and put me on their shoulder with their comments, with their love, with their support, with their wisdom. And it helps me to go and see something different and see a new perspective that I didn't see before. And in that, guess what happens? I grow, I stretch. I just appreciate you, Jeff, because I know that your journey isn't even close from finished. That as you've stepped into Jeff doing Jeff things, that the impact has been amazing and will continue to be amazing and awesome, using the words that I was using before. You'll have an awesome impact
Lego
because,
movie, right?
Because you're having an awesome impact. It comes from what you're here. It comes from who you're being. Jeff is being powerful. He's being loving. He's being service. He's being kind. He's being insightful. He's being wise. He's coming from his heart, and that, my friend, is the key and the magic. Thank you.
I love
Beautifully
that.
said. Beautifully said. And the greatest reward of all, the person we become as a side effect result of all the things we do. Beautifully said. I really resonated.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have any final thoughts here?
One thing I'll add as a cherry on top, we talked about incredible things today. The healing journey, which is very messy, and we all have our challenges. This talk today, this is it. Talking to others and establishing connection and understanding and empathy and being open. I found Jeff doing Jeff things was being open despite the people who wanted me to shut up. Having talks like these, having the courage to share with someone, anyone, you are not alone. You are not alone, even if you think you are, even if you feel like you are. I understand that feeling. And I want to tell you, you are not alone. You're here on the planet with a purpose. And there are people who care about you and who love you.
Yeah, that's powerful. For those that are watching, as we wrap up here, go back through this. If you're not a member of the Tribe of Giants yet, go join the Tribe of Giants, because there is so much content in there. We just keep filling it with content. We're sorry if you're drowning in it, but that's kind of what it's for, is to get you to really see your potential and power. Hugh said earlier that Nick and Ryan are the mustard seed. No, we're kind of like the manure where the mustard seed grows. It could be really rough, but we're more like that garden space where you can really highlight your mustard seed and your potential. And so everything that we do here is about you on the other side of the screen. This has nothing to do with us. This is about you and your potential. So what Jeff is sharing, what Ryan is sharing, this isn't about them. They're doing some powerful things because of you. And so I would say, if it speaks to you to speak to Jeff, do that. Go to jeffdspeaks.com, look him up, go through his videos, read his books, read his tributes, his testimonials. He's got a great website there. Learn more about him. Reach out to him. Have a conversation with him. I promise you it'll change your world. There's nothing in that conversation that wouldn't change your world. So that is why we do what we do. We know that you are exactly where you are, and whether you love it or not, that's where you are. And whatever's happened in your life, that's what happened in your life. So here you are in this space, and you're in the right space in the right time to create anything that you can imagine. So the only thing to do is start rewriting that narrative that you're telling yourself about who you think you are, and start reaching out to giants like Jeff. Have him put you on their shoulder and stand up and show you a different way of seeing things. It's powerful. I had people do that for me. Jeff's had people do that for him, Ryan as well. And so we get a chance to do that for you on the other side of the screen. So reach out to us, come join the tribe, follow Jeff. And as always, we love you. We appreciate you. Go make it a giant day, and we'll see you in the next video.
Love you too.